Thank you. I'm so glad to be here and represent the parents' perspective regarding parental rights in education, but not just education. Let me start, if I may, with the question you asked the Davises. When we say what are parental rights, it's shocking that we are now in a place that we've never thought about how to articulate that, because it's woven into the fabric of America that parents have the fundamental right to direct the education, the health care, and the moral upbringing of their children. It's been a given. And this has been well established in the Constitution and the Supreme Court, but here we are having to explicitly explain that. So I'm glad to have a mayoral candidate that's willing to, hopefully, one of the four things I was going to mention is use the bully pulpit just to remind the public that this is an honest, real cause, and it's our right as parents to proclaim this. We are not AstroTurf, and we are not pawns of dark money, as we've been accused of, but we are just simply standing up for our right to direct the moral upbringing and the education of our children. So I wanted to start there. Sorry, going on long here. But I have four things that the mayor could consider doing. One of them I'm proud to say he's agreed to do tonight later. But we have a Moms for Liberty parent pledge that we ask all elected officials or candidates to sign, which is just to say that you recognize and honor the parents' fundamental rights. We also, Moms for Liberty, have a resolution that we've crafted that we offer for school boards to consider signing. April Carney, but tonight we're talking about the mayor. So we have a city version. We would love to see the city council and the mayor pass a resolution that says this city absolutely affirms parental rights. And let's see, the third thing, actually I think I mentioned out of order, is the bully pulpit. Anytime we have a mayor that can make mention of the power of parents or parental rights, it does just help counter the narrative that we're extremists. It gives legitimacy to our cause, because I can assure you there's no dark money behind anything I'm doing. And then the fourth thing, sorry I'm going along, but the mayor does get to appoint the Office of General Counsel. And what actually activated a lot of us into the parental rights advocacy space a couple of years ago was when our city's OGC cooperated with a law firm to sue the state of Florida against parental rights by forcing masks in school. And we were, that's a whole nother story for another time, but we would love to see the mayor give a lot of thought to who he or she appoints to the Office of General Counsel, so that they do at least listen to some of our concerns. So I would say that. Thanks.
Daniel, we hear from parents. It's about parents feeling heard, feeling like their voice matters and that someone's listening. What, in your opinion, can you do as our mayor to ensure that parents feel like they've been heard by you?
Of course, and I hear it every day from parents about how important education is for our society, for developing a workforce to fill the jobs that we're bringing here. It's incredibly important, and for parents to understand that they have a mayor that backs them. Much like the Fraternal Order of Police here and Sheriff T.K. Waters have endorsed my campaign, because I would tell you they believe I have their back and that I'm going to make sure they have my full support. And that's critically important in a community, to make sure that just like the police officers here know that I'm going to make sure they're well equipped and they have all the opportunities and more officers to back them up on the streets, parents should know that their mayor feels the same way. And that's what I'm going to do with you and the partnership with parents, to understand Rebecca and I have struggled just like you with raising children and trying to let them have the right influences on them. And I look forward to that opportunity. I think the Office of General Counsel is very important. If you don't know about that, the mayor appoints the city's lawyer, and that's the lawyer for all the government institutions locally. And so it's incredibly important when you have matters of law that you have someone that is going to focus on defining law and not creating it. and that's what I'm going to make sure that I have, and we're going to have the best. And so I appreciate your comments, and I hope that I've answered them. All right.
Did anybody else want to jump in on that before we move into to safe neighborhoods? Okay, well, let's move into safe neighborhoods then. We'll start with Chief Easton. What role does public safety play in education?
Hi, good evening. I'm happy to be here and support you and speak on behalf of the sheriff. We actually, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office actually hits this from different levels. So during the daytime, my officers are tasked to ride the neighborhoods and find juveniles that are not in school. It's a truancy deployment. So we ensure that once we come across a juvenile that's under the age of 18, we make sure that we take them to their home school so that they're not out, committing crimes or becoming victims of crime. So that's the first thing that we do. The second thing that's really very pivotal in this is that around the country, you'll see that our school resource officers, because of defunding the police, have been released from this. That's the first officer that's released out of that. And that's such an important role to have and to continue to have, is that school resource officer, because at a very, very young age, from 5 on, they develop that relationship and they develop, some things that they can learn from police officers. And that's the first line of defense. And God forbid we're in this time that we have to worry about an active shooter. We actually have a police officer on site for that. So that's a very important thing that we have to keep. Another thing after school is that we have buses to take our children to the PAL, the Police Athletic League, which is a huge thing. And so, the kids can go there after school. They're with police officers, and they get their homework done, and they learn some really good, vital things. That's really important, that we have to continue that relationship. And the last thing is that we just keep and maintain a really strong relationship with our leaders and our school board resource office, our school board police, so we can continue that relationship all the way through with public safety and education.
Daniel?
I don't want to hog the mic, but I would like to respond. And anybody up here that has the comments on that, y'all jump on it if you want to. But I would tell you, when I was on the city council president, we had incredible violence taking place in certain neighborhoods, and we're seeing that today. I think everyone I talk to, when they turn the news on, they're dreading to see what they see. And Sheriff Waters has done an incredible job making a dent in that, and I think we're heading in the right direction. But when I was on the city council, we led the charge to implement the Jacksonville Journey, which we added 100 new officers to the streets, to the highest crime areas. And we also added, which I think is important and we should talk about, prevention and intervention opportunities to make sure that not only were children occupied when they got home from school, but they were also helped and tutored. And that's incredibly important too, because the investment you make up front is way less than what you would make in the back end whenever someone's entering the criminal justice system. And it's so much better for us to focus on these children at 3rd grade reading levels to make sure they understand how to read before they go to 4th grade. Because if that doesn't happen, the odds of them heading into the criminal justice system is incredibly high. And we saw crime go down. You cannot argue with the crime stats. Back when we implemented Journey, we put the bad guys in jail and we kept them there. And then we had a mayor come in and dismantle Jacksonville Journey, dismantled and defunded police, and now you see crime where it is today. And I think that's something we should talk about, because we know the solution. We just have to have the will to go out there and make it happen. And I'm going to invest in the safety of your streets. We're going to add 200 new police officers. We're going to fill the vacancies by attracting folks from communities where they've defunded the police to come here and join us. And I think it's incredibly important. But you can't just enforce. It's something we have to do right now. It's a triage situation where we have to enforce the laws, but we have to go in and make sure these children have a world-class education and the dignity of a job in the future. Because if you have education and a job, that's the best crime fighter you're ever going to find. And so that's something that we're going to focus on. And I'm so thankful for you and your sacrifice and the men and women you serve next to. You know I have your back as we move forward.
Board Member Carney, let's pull you in. You've talked about the school police versus SROs that report to the sheriff's office. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Before I answer that, I just want to chime into what Daniel said. I agree with you completely. I mean, up on the stage right now is the three arms that are going to make Jacksonville successful. It begins with our children, and then the support of the mayor and the police officers. So that's the partnership that we need. We need to all be working together in order to make our children safe, educated, and able to go out and be productive members of our community. So it's super important. So thank you for your comments on that. So most of you know, we're struggling a little bit right now. Duval County Public Schools, we've been going through a little bit of a bumpy road. And student safety is something that I am extremely concerned about right now in our public schools. It's a nationwide problem, honestly. We've got a big problem in this country with active shooters. We've got kids that don't respect their teachers and are taking their aggressions out on teachers. We've got kids that are taking aggressions out on each other. And so it's really important that we have a discipline action in place for our schools. Back in 2020, when the grand jury investigation came out, the third interim report, one of the recommendations was that Duval County Public Schools have their school police report to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. That's something, in my personal opinion, I think is something that we should be seriously considering. Like I said, at the end of the day, we all need to be working together, and I think that having the support of the Sheriff's Office is going to really make sure that our schools are safe, that our teachers feel safe, and that our kids feel safe on a daily basis. So that's something that I would like to consider going forward.
Yeah, I would tell you I have had incredible conversations with our sheriff. I would tell you Sheriff Waters and I talk every day. And sometimes it's about things that are very difficult in our community, just understanding his philosophy and how he wants to lead the organization. And the more I spend time with him, the more I want you to understand that we are in incredible hands in Jacksonville, Florida.
I just wanted to jump in before we move on to the next topic. So in charter schools, you can either have a school resource officer or you can choose to participate in the Guardian program. One thing, and I'm very privileged and honored to be supporting you, Daniel. But one thing that I think the mayor's office could really help us with is assisting us with that kind of bridge between charter schools and the mayor's office and JSO. When we were trying to open, and we had a real fun time when we opened, because we opened in 2020. So you remember what was going on then, but we could not actually get JSO to respond to us, to actually get through our staff through the Guardian program. And the Guardian program is a month-long program, essentially, and it takes the place. You either have to have a Guardian on campus at all times, or you have to have a JSO officer. The JSO officer, unfortunately, we cannot afford it at Cornerstone. Our budget doesn't allow it. It's probably another, $90,000 a year for us. And when you get 2/3 of the funding as a regular public school does, which I know that there's people in Tallahassee fighting against that and giving us equal funding eventually, but that is a huge burden on the school. And so if anything can relieve that, I think that could be really helpful for us. So as I am the board chair of Cornerstone, and then I'm also serving as the executive director of Jacksonville Classical Academy and Jacksonville Classical Academy East, we have JSO over the Jacksonville Classical Academies, and they've been fantastic. They have been so wonderful. When I had a parent the other day call the school and said that she was going to come shoot someone. JSO was up there immediately. They got my got everything taken care of. They were fantastic. So I can't say enough good things. We have a student who is constantly threatening, this is a third grader, constantly threatening to kill his fellow students, and also throwing things at his teacher and the principal, et cetera. And JSO has been phenomenal. Guardians, and I think guardians are fantastic, but I think if we can have both guardians that know the property inside and out, they know all the students, and JSO, that is they have to have all this training, but I think if we can make it where it's easier to get through, to get access, expensive for JSO officers, that would be the happy medium for me. And I mean, I'm there to protect the babies. That's my number one issue, that's my number one goal, is I want to protect the kids at all times. So I think that could be something that I would love to see on your radar.
Do you want me to respond to that? And I don't know if you want to respond to any of the safety issues as well. I'm happy to share the stage at any time. And I would tell you this, your city government should be working every day to serve you, who I see as the client or the customer of our services. And I know Sheriff Waters feels the same way. And I think that there's always room for improvement. A large organization, you can always improve your customer service. We have issues with permitting, and I know that's part of the issue that you had when you were trying to open up your school. And that's something that we're going to address immediately after we're elected, is to make sure that we're not artificially hamstringing our economic development by creating a system that makes you wait a year to get a permit. A permit for an ice cream shop, much less trying to add an opportunity for parents to have choice. How many, what's your waiting list right now?
We have 750 right now.
One school, they have a waiting list of parents for 750 spots. Think about that. And I would tell you this, Rebecca and I have been blessed. And when we have the ability, if our children are in a failing situation, to pull them out of that failing situation, because I don't have time to wait 3 years for that situation to get better. And I firmly believe Duval County Public Schools is part of the solution to this. You're sacrificing every day, April, to try to make sure it is. And I think it's the system of schools, not a school system, that is the answer. And that's where the mayor can be involved. And you should not be struggling to work with parks to be able to have recreation opportunities when you're a public charter school trying to work with public parks. That should not be a struggle. It should be easy. And that's what we're going to bring. And not only the public safety part of it, but just the normal interaction with the city. It's going to be customer oriented and based on making sure we please the people that we serve.
So you guys are so good, you've already just moved in school choice, so that's great. This session, the legislature passed the largest expansion of school choice in Florida history, which is phenomenal. Now every parent will have the ability to choose the educational option that works best for their students. But I want to talk about, making that available. Like you just said, those options have to be available. There have to be other options to go to, homeschool, virtual school, charter school. All of those have to be options. Talk about what we can do. You already kind of touched on it, but what can from your perspective, including the things you've already mentioned, and maybe expound on those a little bit, what can the city of Jacksonville and our mayor do to help charter schools to build faster? We have 700 kids on the waiting list. How do we, what are some ways that you would like to see him in the mayor's office help move that process along so that those kids who do want to leave their traditional public school have somewhere else to go?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I think this ties back into your when you were talking about reading and how important it is to have just a well-educated citizenry. And so that's why public education, which education was never on my radar until I had my girls, and I realized there were no public or private, purely classical options. So I started a school around my kitchen table. I had no connections. I had no money. I was like, oh yeah, I'm just going to start a school. This is great. How hard can it be? Well, it turned out it was really hard. And so, the permitting issue was one of the biggest hurdles. I mean, we closed on our property March 31st of 2020, 2 weeks into the shutdown, which was a miracle, but then we had to open in August. So the permitting issue was just a nightmare, and we were going back and forth with the city, and we almost didn't get it done. They almost actually wouldn't let us get our permit because they said we had needed a stoplight, which we didn't, and we had to fight back and forth. And so if things can be easier and more seamless, I mean, we're trying to give this wonderful education and educate kids so that we can save the country. That's what I firmly believe, because we can't save the country with the direction that we're on and the path that we're on. So that's why I'm so passionate about this. But anything that we can do to, I have to build a high school in a couple years, I have to build a gym in a couple years, but there are schools that are shutting down, and that will be shutting down, and then probably. And then there's also, I found out there's other churches that are being taken over by the city. I just found out about one today that we can utilize, and we have those 750 students on the wait list, and I feel terrible because I want to take all of them, but we don't have the capacity. So anything like that can speed up the process would be wonderful. And then I'd also say too, one of the things that I think could be also helpful, and I know this falls under the state, is the health department. The health department wasn't the friendliest to us when we were trying to get open. So anything that the mayor's office could do for that and kind of be a liaison would be very, very helpful.
I just want to chime in on one more thing that I think would be really important that the mayor's office could help out with expanding school choice and allowing new schools to come in and open would be infrastructure. We had in the last year a great school that wanted to come into the Mandarin area, and they finally threw their hands up and said, we're not coming because of the traffic issues. And so I think there's got to be a way that the city can meet these schools halfway and say, okay, well, we're going to help expand the roads in this area. We're going to add traffic lights for you so that we can bring more and more of these different types of curriculum into the city so that we have more school choice for everybody. That's really important.
Yeah, I have an idea. I have a very nuts and bolts idea that just came to me today, and I thought, this is my opportunity, I might as well share it. You could be the school choice mayor by doing this one thing. In observing school board workshops, probably a lot of you in the room are familiar, Duval County's been doing it for a long time, the School Choice Expo, where they advertise to all the parents in the communities about the different magnet schools that Duval County Public Schools offer. But in the last year or two, it's become almost cost prohibitive. The school board members are struggling because they know this is an event that parents love. But what if the mayor or the city could sponsor this in full or in part, and it could be affordable, but it would include not just Duval County Public Schools magnet programs, but we could have booths for the charter schools, we could have booths for homeschool resources, we could have information for private schools to really open up for all the community in one place to see all that the city offers in terms of school choice. And I thought that was a good idea. I don't know.
That's a great idea, and I appreciate all the comments, and would tell you that I believe there are solutions to the permitting issue. It's not just the schools, but that's a symptom of a bigger sickness, in my opinion. And I believe you have lots of hardworking folks that work for the city that have stacks of projects on their desk, and it's almost insurmountable for them to even get through. I think that there are ways that we can use private sector experts to solve the backlog of these permits, not only school issues, but other construction issues, whether it's workforce housing, whether it's a small business, a mom and pop. We should be able to move them through that process quicker. That doesn't mean you skip steps or you do things that are not following code. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about getting to yes quicker than where we are. Right now you have 30 days to respond, and the 29th day you get a couple comments. And it's just not right to do that with citizens who are trying to move forward to create jobs or create seats for schools to educate our future workforce. And that's going to be something that we impact immediately after election. I would also tell you that I agree that the mayor has significant opportunity, I call it, to shed light and to keep accountability. And that's what I'm going to do on important issues, to make sure the citizens understand. They understand if there is a certain segment of our system of schools that refuses to come along with everybody else, that we make that public and open, and there's accountability. That helps everybody work harder whenever you have that opportunity. And I plan on doing that. I plan on looking at city property. This is something Esther and I have talked about. Not only for workforce housing, but opportunities to create public charter schools, to make that available to these parents that are waiting, 750 people waiting, and they don't have the options out there. So there are all sorts of ideas, but I need you to come along with me and help me get these things done. And so I'm so thankful for you to be here tonight so we can make these changes, these desperately needed changes in Jacksonville.
April, I'd like to go to you. From your perspective, from the school board perspective, what can the mayor's office do to create synergies between the city of Jacksonville and the school board? It doesn't seem to me like there's been a lot of that in the past, and what would you like to see?
I think we need to be having conversations. I think we need to have an open door to one another, and right now we don't have that at all. One thing that I've always said is that without the city's help, we can't help all of our children. I mean, we're all in this together, and the future of our city relies on what's coming out of our public schools. Just like what Daniel was saying before, like if our children aren't reading and they can't fill out a job application, they're not getting a job and they're ending up on the streets, and so then our crime rates go up. And so, I mean, I would love it if we had even if it was a quarterly meeting with the mayor's office where the school board came and sat down with the mayor and his staff and we talk about, okay, this is what we're struggling with right now. This is how we think we can be partners in this situation, and let's work together. It's so important, and right now that just doesn't exist, so.
I think that's so incredibly important. And we've had significant conversations with the leaders in the beaches communities. And part of it is, hey, we need to make sure that we're communicating on a regular basis. And I have committed, if they would like, to have a liaison from the city of Jacksonville. I'm constantly in communication with the beaches communities, the civic leaders, not just the elected, the business leaders as well, to understand exactly how the county government in that situation can assist the beaches communities. Not try to tell them the direction to head, but to help back up whenever they need backup. And I think the same thing should happen with the school board. I would be willing to set up a liaison in the mayor's office to work closely with all of the education systems, including Duval County Public Schools. But like I said before, it's a system of schools. That's going to be what solves our workforce issues in the future. Not just Duval County, not private, not just public charters or homeschooling. It's all of them together. And I'm planning on bringing everybody in on a regular basis. And one of the ideas I have is to bring business leaders in to say, yes, you're producing the product I want, or no, you're not producing the product I want. I can't hire what you're producing. This is how I would change it. And then on a regular basis, we keep the school systems accountable. Are they making moves that the community wants? And that's what we're going to do. And when we talk about, I don't really like the term bully pulpit. I understand that people get that. I like shining light. Shining light on the issue. Keeping accountability. That's what I'm going to focus on. And I promise you, when you shine light, everybody starts paying attention. And that's what we're going to do. It's critically important for the future of Jacksonville. We're bringing thousands of jobs here, and we've got to be able to fill them. And like I said earlier, if we give a child an education and a job, that's the best crime fighter you're ever going to find. So that's how I plan to approach it.
And I like that idea because, I mean, right now, so We have a new diploma at Duval County Public Schools. It's called the Duval Work Ready Diploma, and it's a special program that kids are going through. This is the first year that our seniors will be graduating with this diploma, and it's a career technical education diploma. And that's where business leaders can come in and say, wow, this kid's ready to go. I can hire him on the spot. But we also need people from different industries that might be getting ready to retire that want to work with kids and come into our schools and teach some of these courses. So that's a way that we can come together and work with business leaders on both sides of the aisle there.
I just had another thought. I'll keep it very short. There may be city grants that could help fund paying for some of our career and technical educators, because the school district has a hard time attracting them because the salary leaving the private business to come teach students is a big, big pay cut. But there might be a piecemeal approach. Maybe there could be grant funds that could help certain, businesses that want to come. That's all.
That's a great idea.
Anybody else? Before we move on to questions, anybody, any?
Say something. I keep thinking about, my kids' education and all the different schools, both that they've been in and the schools that I've had the opportunity to visit as Daniel's wife and as a board member with Kids Hope Alliance and as a nurse. And I just keep picturing all these teachers that have invested in my kids and invest in y'all's kids and sacrificed so much. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank them. And without them, we'd all be a mess. They're in there every day investing in our children, and I think it's important that we make sure we appreciate them, we take care of them, we honor them for the heroes that they are in our community. So I just want to say thank you.
And next week is Teacher Appreciation Week, everybody, so make sure you let your teachers know.
So one school in particular that I had the opportunity to visit this year, Rufus E. Payne Elementary on the north side. These children show up to school hungry. Most cases, they're clothes from the day before dirty. They haven't had a bath. And these sweet teachers are not only feeding them, but they're buying them clothes. They have a bath station in the nurse's office with clean washcloths and soap so that they can quietly, when the kids show up to school and they're obviously haven't been prepared, they can bring them in. These children are coming to school without socks and underwear on. They don't have any. And these teachers are spending their salaries to feed and clothe and bathe these children, and they are heroes. And if anybody wants to donate socks or underwear or clothing to Rufus E. Payne Elementary, they would love to have anything you have to offer.
I remember the first time I saw this. I was newly elected on the city council, and I was asked to come read to Oak Hill Elementary School. And children came in, and they offered a sausage biscuit to the children. And one of the teachers that I was very close with explained they devoured the biscuit that was in front of them. And the teacher explained, Daniel, you don't understand. They haven't had dinner. They didn't have dinner the night before. And I was shocked, could not believe it. The only time that they were fed was at the school. Think about that. We've been so blessed in this community. Many of us, you didn't pray that your car would start when you pushed the button or turned your key. And there are people living in those situations all over our city. And we have to make sure that we're pulling everybody with us, not just the folks that we know in our community. And I think it's incredibly important. All of this is so important. The difference that we're making for these children to have this education so they can have a job is incredibly important. Something as simple as helping teachers with clean socks and underwear. And that's something that can change the life of a child. And I'm so grateful you brought that up. I didn't want to get past this without thanking all the teachers that work so hard to educate our children.
Would you tell us about Hope Alliance, just really quick?
Sure. So the Kids Hope Alliance, for those of you that may not be aware, is the entity that distributes the taxpayer dollars to after school and early learning and violence prevention programs across our city, and then oversees the programming to make sure that they're being run well, that the kids are really being helped and given hope. And I've had the privilege to be on the board for 7 years, and there is so much great work being done across our city. So many great programs, kids that are thriving because they have a place to go after school and receive tutoring and character development. They have a place to go and learn the arts and develop their skills. The early learning work that's being done is phenomenal for these families that can't afford to go to work and pay for childcare, and they're able to place their young children in a safe environment where they're able to be cared for well and be prepared to learn when they get to school. And the violence prevention programs that are taking kids that have a minor offense and putting them in a diversion program so that they have opportunity not to have a record and to move forward and be successful. It's phenomenal. But there's still a lot of work to be done. And I am so grateful for the opportunity I've had to really have a firsthand view of the needs across our city, and I look forward by his side to advocating for those that programming and all those families and children that need our help.
Thank you for that service. That's amazing. I actually was not aware of that program, so I'm glad that we're all now aware of that, and we can all drop off socks somewhere. We'll let you know before the end of the night where you can drop off those items. So any other comments before we go to questions? All right, I'm going to come out. Questions from the audience? If you put your hand up, and I'll bring you a mic.
Is that Reggie?
Hi, I'm Reginald Blunt. I have a question that school board, potential mayor, law enforcement might want to chime in on. When we talk about parental rights, which is a good thing, but what we're seeing across the nation is that, especially in schools, every now and then you get what I call rogue educators, who no matter what your parental rights are, they kind of push them aside, and they begin to teach the children things that are totally inappropriate, even if the curriculum does not warrant that. As a potential mayor and law, because there are laws on the books right now that talks about what abuse is. And when you're using abusive content on children, pushing content that is not appropriate, then there's some laws that there should be punishment behind that. What I see in our system is there is not really a lot of consequences for educators who go off the rails and try to teach what they want to teach. And I wonder, as leaders, what would you say, especially law enforcement, when they clearly violate laws that are on the books by teaching inappropriate conduct? Because it's not just a school board issue, it can be a law enforcement issue also.
I would ask, obviously I'm going to answer that, but I would like to hear what April has to say too on what DCPS is doing in situations like that. This is what I would tell you, and this is what Rebecca and I have talked about, and how we want to raise our children. Every adult in this room knows when and if someone talks to a minor or a youth inappropriately. It's very, very clear. What is appropriate conversation with some child that's not your child versus having an inappropriate conversation with someone with the child that is not yours. That's not going to be tolerated in the city of Jacksonville. When my children are approaching adulthood, some of them are already adults, I feel like they're out of the vulnerable stage. But when my children were 8, 10, 12, and 14, we watched them like a hawk. We didn't let people try to talk to our children about what their philosophy should be. That was our job as parents. And like we talked about, these incredible teachers that are pouring their lives into these children every day. And I think that government and schools should focus on education, reading, writing, arithmetic, and parents should focus on raising their children and talking to them about private matters and making good decisions. And that's where Rebecca and I stand, and that's where I'm going to stand as mayor. It's inappropriate, and every adult in here knows when that conversation is inappropriate. And that's my belief on it. I'd love to hear what April has to say.
So there's kind of a two-prong situation here, right? So we've got, so the school board, we're in charge of creating policy that needs to be enforced throughout the district. It's our responsibility to make sure that we're following state statute and our policy is in alignment with that. So since a lot of this new legislation has passed over the last year or so, being House Bill 1557 and House Bill 7, in regards to what's being taught to our children, we've had to go back and revise policy. Now, it's the individual leadership at those schools that needs to make sure that they're enforcing those policies, and that's something that I've been keeping a watchful eye on. In addition to that, we do have an agreement with the Duval Teachers Union, and they have a disciplinary procedure that they would like to be used. I'm not necessarily in agreement with the current disciplinary actions that are in the Duval Teachers Union agreement because it's almost complete opposite of what the State Department of Education recommends. So we're at a disconnect right now, and I think that it's something that we need to be taking a much closer look at because at the end of the day, we need to be in alignment with what the Florida Department of Education is looking to see throughout the state, and that's our responsibility as a board to go back and look at that agreement and see where we can make changes.
As a public charter, how do you address issues that would be of that matter in your classrooms?
My philosophy is, well, number one, we're not unionized, so we're not beholden to the unions. Number two, my philosophy is I hire slowly and fire fast. So I actually had a teacher just a couple weeks ago that I saw doing some very inappropriate things, not anything that, I don't want to share it, but it was so upsetting to me. I had to go back to my office and cry because it was that bad. And the next day, she wasn't there anymore. And so that's my thought. If there's anything illegal, we have an obligation and we have to report it to FDOE. But I'm not going to keep anybody in my buildings that's going to be violating the law or mistreating children.
One more thing I forgot to add is that now because of Governor DeSantis, teachers do have to renew their contract every year. So we no longer have tenured teachers. And so that's something that has to happen on a yearly basis too. And so it's going to take a little while, but that's going to make a big change as well.
Yeah, Rebecca, the story you just told about the kids without underclothes and socks has just broke my heart. Is there any way that we can connect with Northside businesses to help this school out too?
I think that is a fabulous idea.
So
I feel like there are so many people, whether it's the school that I'm talking about or other needs, that if people knew what the needs were, they would be thrilled to be involved and to give. But we have to organize it, get the needs out there, and organize the groups to make the difference. So I think that's a fabulous idea, and we will make sure that they get the information. Thank you.
I couldn't agree more with what some of you are saying, and then I could disagree more with what some of you are saying. I can remember giving a teacher an unsatisfactory evaluation and having to go before the school board in a televised meeting and defend my position. I felt like I was the one who was being questioned rather than the teacher. It eventually went to the State Practices Commission, and we followed with a long I don't know what to call it, but a long time of trying to get it resolved. And they sent a registered letter to her, and she was smart enough not to go get it. And they never followed through on it. Because she was unsatisfactory, she had the opportunity to transfer to another school the second year. And finally, from that school, she was terminated. But it just isn't as simple as it is for you. I wish it was. I had a custodian who told one of my students that school was not his teacher, God was. I couldn't agree more, but he didn't have the right to say that to that student in the way he did. He was civil service. I thought I would never get him away from my school. So sometimes the hands are tied, and you know that. You're aware of it. I'm interested in your reaction to the retirement of Superintendent Green. I also would like to ask if any of the former, well, the principal now, and the former principals are being held accountable, because these things took place over a period of time, long before Dr. Green came into our community, and with other superintendents as well. So it's not just one person to whom we need to be directing our attention.
Sure.
Anybody?
So I got, you're asking me about the superintendent and then about Douglas Anderson, is that correct? I want to make sure that I answer your question correctly. So Dr. Green actually came to a few of the board members before all of this attention was being drawn on the situation, that she was ready to retire. So for me, I think it was just like in our yesterday's meeting, board member Hershey said this very well. It was kind of a perfect storm because she was ready. These things were happening. She was feeling, a lot of pressure from the community, both sides of the community. I just think she felt like it was time. I understand what you're saying about hands being tied. The problem with what's happened to Douglas Anderson, and although he's had a long track record, he also had another incident 2 years ago that wasn't handled. And I think that was something that the board saw as really, really unfortunate. She had the opportunity in 2021 to take care of the situation, and it went unreported. So it's an unfortunate situation we're in. I can tell you that us as a board is committed to changing the culture and to changing the systems that have been going on for a long time, because at the end of the day, our children are not going to thrive if our teachers and our staff are not happy. We're trying to fill positions. We have got to make sure that our teachers are being taken care of and they're in a good position just as much as our kids are. So I can tell you myself that this board is working hard together to make sure that we are taking care of the kids and the teachers, and that we're creating a culture that works for everybody.
And I would just touch on that. We talked earlier about shedding light and having accountability. I think in government, that's always the place where we should lean, is shedding light, being transparent, keeping people accountable. And so that's something that, as mayor and as the future leader of your city, that's what I'm going to bring as a philosophy to City Hall.
Hi, my name is Melissa Ryan. This is my husband, John, and we just moved to Jacksonville from way out west. And so it's very nice to meet you, too. We are brand-new voters here, and we have grown kids, but hoping to have grandchildren. And I was a teacher in the Oakland School District in California in the inner city schools, so that story was my school. We had police officers, the Oakland police officers there, and as you know, that community none of the kids had two parents. Most of them were foster kids. Most of them were raised by their grandparents who didn't want to raise them anymore. So we had Oakland Public Schools officers as our yard teacher people to try to develop a relationship with the kids because they didn't like police officers. They arrested their parents. So as mayor, I'm just curious, is there, like, in your budget, a way to pay extra for that kind of, not a resource officer, like an armed resource officer, but police officers there, they're outside playing basketball with the kids at recess, and so there was not a lot of fighting, which there used to be. And then I was an Oakland public school teacher, but all three of my kids went to private Catholic school, K through 12. And at our private school, the high school, they would have police dogs come unannounced. They were introduced to the parent community before and just said they would come and they could sniff out drugs, they could sniff out, weapons. There were kids that were, people would kind of allude to the fact that these kids were a danger or whatever. I don't know if they can do that in a public school.
We just started our first K-9 unit
Yeah.
at Duval County Public Schools. So that is, we have 2 dogs. And so that's just been implemented. We just met the dogs at our last board workshop.
That's amazing.
So
That's
it's,
amazing.
yeah, it's in the works.
So
It's coming.
my question is how much in the schools do you work with the law enforcement, and is there a big budget for that?
Actually, we're in all of the public schools, so it's either going to be a Jacksonville Sheriff's Office officer, or it's going to be a school board the school board officer. So there's 2 entities here. So all of our schools have some sort of law enforcement on property. Unfortunately, earlier when she was talking about the charter schools and the private schools, those do fall by the wayside, because when they implemented the legislation, the public schools are the ones that were more prevalent to get the police officers there. And so we work really closely with our school board, police. So we do really honestly have a very good relationship with those schools. And when I was a lieutenant, I actually got to work in a lot of the schools, because when they did implement that legislation, we had to mandate police officers. So there was police officers that had to work not only their regular shift, but on their days off, they were mandated to be in those schools for the last 2 years. We're kind of pulling out of that a little bit more because of budgetary reasons. And so we have guardians the guardians, and what you're probably not familiar with, but they are armed security guards trained by Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. They go to the gun range. They're trained in gun and weapon safety and tactics. So they're in armed security on that site. And so when we have those schools with those armed security guards, we also have the school board police that actually make rounds to each school every single day. And then we have our special events section that has police officers that also, make rounds to the schools. So we have a very strong presence in all the schools in Jacksonville.
And I would answer your question. I think you've had 2 great answers already. But I would answer your question saying the role of the mayor is not to be a law enforcement officer or an expert. The role of the mayor is to make sure that the relationship with the sheriff is incredibly good and is moving our community forward, and that they are funded with all the resources they need. So if the sheriff comes to me and says, listen, this is what I think is necessary for us to keep children safe or keep neighborhoods safe, you better believe he's going to have my attention. And I think it's critical for everybody in here to know that my philosophy is common sense, conservative approach to governing. That means less people at City Hall and more of your money on the street in infrastructure and in police. So that's what I'm going to do.
Hi, I'm Elijah Dan. I was wondering, so I go to Jacksonville Classical Academy, but I was wondering if you're gonna make like more charter schools like it. One problem though that's been continuing and ongoing is vandalism. There's always a bunch of vandalism, and there's not really much done about it, and most of the time it's stuff inappropriate, and I feel like there should be something done about it. inside our school?
Great
Yeah,
question.
in our city.
Great job. Fantastic. Let's give Elijah. So I think most everybody here has what my philosophy would be. To answer your question, I believe every parent should have more choice, and parents are voting with their feet every day. That means they're voting by taking their children to other opportunities, or maybe they love the public school that they're in, and that's what the parent's choice is. And so that's something that I'm going to continue to support, and I think there's no room for vandalism in our city. And what I like to say is we need to get the nuts and bolts right of city government and focus on the small things being excellent, like making sure trash is picked up, making sure you don't have inappropriate vandalism or spray paint somewhere, making sure we clean all of that up so people can be proud of the city that they live in. It's a clean city and that it's functioning properly. That's the number one job of your next CEO as mayor. And so I'm going to focus on that. I appreciate that incredible question. I can tell you're going to be just fine in life. All right?
Good afternoon. My question and slash comment, one problem that we struggle with in the public schools is retaining and getting the best teachers. So as mayor, what is your plan to kind of help the school board? And I'm all for school choice. I actually work for a private education company. But what is your plan to help with retaining the best teachers in Jacksonville, Florida?
Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate that. I would be just much like the talk about making sure we attract and retain the best police officers and firefighters. I think the school board should be focused on making sure we attract the best. And we've got a great story to tell in Jacksonville, Florida. People want to be here. The military personnel that serve here don't want to leave. They want to stay and get a job in this community. And I think we should be utilizing all the talent we have and also marketing to other communities. That's what we do every day at the chamber. You don't think I'd call CEOs that may be in Michigan or New Jersey in January and ask them, what time are you going to tee off at the golf course today? And they say, well, there's 3 feet of snow. Well, why don't you move your company down here and you can tee off in January? It's all marketing. And I have an expertise there to make sure we can attract the best and brightest. We're going to continue doing that, not only at the city level, but working closely with the school board to make sure we do the same thing.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tracy McGathy, and I had the honor of serving as an elementary school charter school principal here in Duval County from the years 2000 to 2007. During that time, it was our intention to reach those students who weren't successful on the traditional level, and we continue to see that to be a concern for our community. My question is, are there any particular efforts as it relates to the mental health of our youth and young adults? I am also a parent of a young lady who took her own life, and I had no place to go. I didn't have a lot of help. And I'm wondering, how can we ensure that not another parent has to endure what I've endured, but then also have resources and opportunities where there may not be money to do so, but resources available. And there were incidences where I believe that our leaders could have been more informed with how to deal with our youth who are struggling with mental health. So I would love to see or hear how, from an educational or JSO standpoint, how we would look to address that. And I look forward to supporting you in the future.
Thank you. And I think everybody in here is sorry and sorrowful for your loss. I can't even imagine. And I apologize for you not having the resources necessary. And I think that mental health is incredibly important for us to address, because what we see in the community when you have people suffering from mental health issues. Oftentimes, you see them with self-medicating to try to make sure that they solve the issues that they're having, and that leads to crime and other issues with drug enforcement in this community. And the opioid epidemic is just, it's incredibly sad, and I don't want it to be overlooked. And I want you to know that I'm sorry for you. And as a parent, I can't even imagine. I think that there are opportunities for us with children that you worked with that may not be college bound. And that's okay. Because when I was at the Builders Association, I worked with a bunch of folks in the construction industry that barely had a high school education and employed hundreds of people making millions of dollars a year because they had a great skill. And so we need to focus on some children aren't going to go to college. And there's not a problem with that, but you need to have a skill so you can move forward in life. And I think apprenticeship programs are incredibly important to address. I'm going to continue that focus, working with both the union and non-union groups to make sure that they train folks. But we need to address issues of mental health and make sure that children that aren't college bound have a great career path. And once again, I'm very sorry for your loss.
Let me expand on that too, with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Again, and I'm sorry for your loss. Also, you have a fantastic voice. I mean, it was lovely. It was very soothing. So the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, we've actually been rewriting our mental health order to address juveniles and mentally ill patients. And so we've implemented a program called the Co-Responder Program. So we have 12 officers that actually ride with a psychologist every single day that is affiliated with River Point or the Mental Health Resource Center or all the other entities in the mental health field. And so instead of police officers going and just finding somebody or a juvenile and we just take them to, and Baker Act them is what we call it, the 72-hour watch, we actually have the person that's riding with the officer do a long-term program for them. So it's really helped out a lot, and we've got a lot of really fantastic stories. And one in particular, there's a lady downtown that she's been, a mentally ill lady forever, for as long as I've been a police officer, which is almost 23 years, and I'm 30, so it's weird, but so she. But we got long-term care for her, and we have actually got her on the medication that she needed, and now she's thriving, and she's in a job, and she's no longer on the street. So it's really something that the sheriff is really, really passionate about, and he's spoken with him, and hopefully that we can make and grow that program even bigger, because it's really reaching out to our juveniles even further.
Duval County Public Schools has every year been broadening the scope of mental health and how involved we are with counseling services inside of our schools. In fact, May is our designated Mental Health Awareness Month. And I think we all know that social media and the phones and the screens and everything has become a detriment to our children. They're constantly comparing themselves to others, and they feel pressures from things that really aren't real, right? So we see it as a very large issue. We have counselors in each of our schools. We make sure that every day our kids know when they're inside that building that there is someone that they can go and talk to. We've partnered with large organizations like the United Way that comes in, and they have programs for our kids too, to be able to have a safe place to open up and talk about things. So it's something that we're really aware of. I mean, we have a whole department that's dedicated to mental health. We understand. I have 2 teenage daughters, and so it's something we struggle with in our house too, and it's very near and dear to my heart. It's something that I make sure that we are constantly letting our parents know that you have another place to go and talk and receive counseling services free through the district.
Daniel and Rebecca, thank you for everything that you guys do in our community and you have for so many years. Thank you for being here and being accessible to our parents and to talk to them and listen to their concerns. Thank you to our panelists for coming and being involved, and thank you for coming to have the conversation. Thank you for caring enough to care about parental rights and our children. So Daniel, if you want to just close us out, and then if anybody wants to come up and chat one-to-one,
I'll
feel
be here
free.
as long as you want to talk. And Esther, thank you so much for your leadership in this community and in the education and parent choice and parent rights issues. I look forward to serving you. I cannot wait to make Jacksonville a safer, more affordable place to live. I'm going to work every day between now and May 16th to make sure that we get there so we can make the differences in Jacksonville that we've all talked about tonight. Thank you so much for being here. I cannot wait to talk to you before you leave. Thank you very much.